All right, so welcome to the More Customers Faster weekly webinar. Today we're going to talk about heat mapping and conversion. So this is an extension of what we already started talking about with Google Analytics and setting up goals and doing split testing and fun stuff like that. This is going to be kind of the final analytic type webinar we do for a while. In the future, we're going to be moving towards Facebook advertising. So if you guys are interested in that, that'll be coming up next week. I've been doing more of that than I'd like to admit lately. Um, Click my button here. All right, so here's what we're going to talk about. We will talk about Google Analytics a little bit because it does have some heat mapping type features, although they are very limited. Clicktale.com, crazyegg.com, luckyorange.com. Those are all tools that you can use. For the most part, what I'm going to show you today is screenshots and campaigns and things from Clicktale uh, and some stuff from Lucky Orange. You've probably seen the little, ask questions on the morecustomersfaster.com site. That's from Lucky Orange. Um, those types of things, those little pop-up question things, chat boxes actually work quite well. Just to let you know, I have two workshops coming up for lead generation. I'll give you some details about it at the end, but one is on March 17th in Phoenix, Arizona, another one April 17th in San Diego, California. So if you're interested in that, I'll give you some details at the end of this webinar. I want to also invite you to stay connected. YouTube.com/more customers faster. Oh, I'm missing a T there. Good job, Robert. I'm human. So, and then facebook.com/more customers faster. That's brand new. I just set that up. There's literally 0 likes. So if you guys enjoy this webinar and this content, I could really use some likes on there so I don't look like a complete newbie. That would be greatly appreciated. And then coming soon, I'm going to have a free member area. So, the way the training is set up right now, the archive is kind of not so great. So I'm working to improve that. But as you can imagine, with having consulting clients and so on and so forth, it takes time to do all of this stuff as well. So your patience is greatly appreciated. So what I'm going to do is start out with a website you may have heard of called Which Test One, and this is the one that they have out right now. And we'll do a little interactive session here, and you can guess without having to go to the website. And I'm just curious which one you think won. So in other words, which one of these designs had the best conversions, leads, lowest bounce rate, that kind of stuff. I mean, you can either type it in the box or just guess by looking at this. Now, the more of this split testing and heat mapping type things that you do, the easier it is to kind of guess which one is going to work. And in this case, if you guessed A, then you guessed correctly. So according to the folks at Which Test One, version A, the homepage with the grid of images, increased clicks by almost 200% and sales by 75%. Now, the reason that they think that is the case is because it gave people immediate access to the things that they wanted. And, and in more advanced layouts, when you're doing pay-per-click and stuff, you could even send somebody directly to a category or specific page based on keywords, right? So you can even get higher conversions, higher click-throughs, etc. So, bearing that in mind, I'm going to take you through an example, client of mine. So Ron Phillips is a real estate investment advisor, coach. We recently remodeled his website, his personal website. And one of the things that, we did right after it was designed was put on Clicktale, which was one of the tools I told you about, and to see, what people were doing and using. So we have, whenever you build a site, you make some assumptions about things, but you never really know until you actually test and verify, right? So what you're seeing here is basically the above the fold view that most people see. So this screenshot is what will fit on most people's screens. I think it was like something like 90% of the people see this. Now, Heat maps are great for a couple different things, right? For telling you or giving you a good indication of what people are moving their mouse over, what they're clicking on. You'll notice in this case that there's little numbers all over the place where there's items that can be clicked. And one of the things that was getting a lot of clicks but actually wasn't clickable is the little book image on the far left. And I should know better because I've done enough of these to know that anytime you put an image on a website, it's typically going to get clicks. And it was roughly, I think I have a screenshot here that tells you how many clicks it was getting. But basically, right there, so it's highlighted. So it says 2.7% of the visitors were clicking on that, and 5.4% were clicking on the download your free audio edition of his book. And so, combined, that is what, 5, 6, 7, 8, a little over 8% of all visitors clicking on basically the same thing in two different locations. And we use a Lightbox pop-up for the opt-in. This is custom programmed JavaScript stuff, but what happens now is no matter which one of those things they click on, the same Lightbox comes up, whereas before, if they clicked on the book, nothing came up. We're also getting some clicks on the little CD icon on the right, and we'll also add that as a hotspot. So when they click on it, it'll just bring up the free audio edition opt-in form. So this is one of the things that you'll see, and actually on the next slide I'll talk about in just a little bit more detail. But the number of visitors clicking, 2.7% is listed there. That's on the book, and then 5.4% on the download your free audio edition. The hover time and hover conversion and hesitation, those are numbers that most conversion optimization specialists will tell you can give you an indication of whether or not you're being clear in your message. So in other words, if they're hovering over the free audio edition book and they're only waiting half a second for the book cover you see on the left, and they're waiting 1.2 seconds on the actual button, you have to ask yourself, why are they waiting longer to click one versus the other? What's the hesitation? And what can you do to reduce that time? Now, 1.2 seconds isn't that long, so that isn't really something that we would look at or care about. Now, this is an example, and it's kind of fuzzy. It's an example that I pulled directly from the Clicktale website and in their blog. And it seems very obvious when you look at the before and after, but the one on the left, which is the before, you see that there's a lot of boxes, a lot of different things, right? So they got the black box and then the blue and the red and the green sections and so on and so forth. And really, the purpose of every website is to drive leads and sales and phone calls. So in this case, they were trying to send people to a web form, but that web form was kind of hidden into that little green bar, and only 0.3% of the visitors were clicking on that. And so when they reorganized the content to where there's a nice big section in there with some bullet points above the call to action and the button, 11% of the visitors were now clicking on that. And the time to click went from 20 or 57 seconds, or almost a minute, to 21 seconds. So that's a huge difference, particularly when you're talking about every visitor, trying to get as many leads as you can out of every visit and creating more conversions for your client or for your own website, whatever that may be. So just looking at purely at the design and how clear stuff is really important. One of the things that I posted this actually on the Facebook page. There was a study done recently that these big images, these sliders like you see in this example here, uh, really are kind of poo-pooed by the conversion rate optimization specialists of the world, and they provide no value other than they're visually appealing. Obviously, that's different based upon what the goals of your site are, but that's something else that you need to consider as well. It's just the overall design and look and purpose. Now, here's what they don't tell you. Oftentimes you'll see these types of numbers quoted by people, experts or blog posts or what have you. And what they don't always tell you is what the traffic source is, right? So traffic has a big impact on the results that you'll see. So if you buy advertising from Facebook or Google, you're going to have a lot less interaction. You're going to have a higher bounce rate. Um, the stats are going to be completely different than if you were to send an email to your own list of people and invite them to go sign up for a free weekly webinar, for example. Or if a JV partner or business partner is going to send an email endorsing you, you're going to have a different interaction and higher conversion rates. When you look at cold traffic, you also have to look at the demographic data. So, for example, in the world of Facebook, and we'll talk about this next week when we get into Facebook paid advertising, Facebook marketing, but if you're advertising to people under the age of 25, they're going to respond to and interact with things differently than folks that are over the age of 40, for example. Not only do you have different attention spans, I mean, let's face it, everybody that's um, new in the world has the attention span of, I've heard of a gnat, but they're just have a shorter attention span. I mean, my kids being great examples. And they also use different language, right? So if you study copywriting at all, what you say and what is said on the landing page for an age group is important. And then the other thing that they don't tell you is the overall goal of the funnel, right? So if somebody's going to sign up for the free weekly training and ultimately you want them to do something else, you also have to look at the complete picture. So is the form and the traffic and everything actually getting you what you want? I mean, ultimately, are you getting the right people into your funnel? And that's a bigger conversation, and that we'll talk about in the future as well. So using a tool called Lucky Orange, which is just another analytics tool, which I have on the More Customers Faster website, it'll actually look at things like form conversion. So you can see here that on the weekly webinar that the conversion rate as of right now is about 57%. Now, the reason it's that high, there's a couple reasons it's that high. One is that I'm sending out emails to people that I know, right? So most of you are on a list of mine, I think, and are here because you were invited via email. And so you probably have some familiarity with who I am, and therefore you are more likely to sign up. But one of the things you'll notice if you do any form conversion testing, you can actually get very detailed in terms of the actual steps in the form. And I don't think it's in this picture. No, it's not. That's just the overall conversion rate. You can actually look at screenshots where they'll tell you how long it takes people to fill out each field in the form, and then at what form field do they abandon the process. So if you have first name, last name, email, phone number, obviously the more fields you have in there, the more likely they are to not fill it out, right? You and I both know that we don't want to give everybody our phone number because we're afraid they're going to call us and try and sell us something. So, unless you really want what they have, you're probably not going to give a phone number. So some of the things that you need to consider given that information is the actual goals of the form. So, if it doesn't do you any good or your customer any good to get an email address and not a phone number, then why would you only get an email, right? So is email really enough for the goal of the form or the funnel? And so sure, you can put heat maps on it and do all this other sort of thing. But if you don't get the information that you need to turn that lead or that prospect into a valid contact, then what's the point? One of the ways that you can kind of overcome that problem is to do multi-step versus the long form, right? So instead of showing a big form with 5 fields that they can fill out, you only show 2, and then they hit next, and then they put in 1 or 2 more, and so on and so forth. We're seeing those convert really well in most cases. Um, you need to have an obvious call to action and very readable font. I think this is something that people don't really think about, the readable font part in particular. So I think a lot of us get this idea that pretty colors or cursive handwriting would be cool, or man, that looks neat. But you forget about the fact that some people wear glasses, and maybe then when they go to your page, they're not wearing their glasses that day, or that maybe English isn't their first language, or they're on a mobile device, so on and so forth. So all those things need to be considered when you're doing landing pages and split testing. And that's some of the stuff that heat mapping will reveal, are the things that you didn't think of. So I'm actually going to show you, last week we did the split test, and I think I revealed which version of the landing page won, but I also ran heat mapping on the alternate page, and I discovered something interesting when I went back and looked at it this week. Uh, I see your question there, Dennis, and I'll get to all the questions at the end of the training here. So I'm just going to keep going for right now, and I'll get to your question at the end. So these were the two pages we had. So I have the one that is kind of the winner at this point, and then we have the one with the orange button, which I was running the split test for. And it was only a 3-day experiment, but what I discovered was, first of all, that the original one, the one on the left, converted at a higher rate, and the other one didn't. So purely only running a split test, which is an A/B split test, half the traffic goes to one and then half the traffic goes to the other one, I would immediately think, oh, well, the one on the right there, the one with the orange button, is the loser. Well, when I looked at the heat map, the one that was converting lower at 31% versus 52%, I discovered something. See this big hot spot in the top right corner? There's a login JavaScript drop-down thing that's part of Wishlist Member. See, I was installing or setting up, I'm still in the process of setting up this site to have the free membership area, and that was on the secondary landing page, and I didn't realize it or forgot about it or whatever the case may be. And most people were trying to click there, probably because a significant number of folks had already signed up, or they were thinking that because they were on my list or they've purchased something from me in the past, that they would have a login. I don't know exactly what all the circumstances were, but I believe that's the reason that they converted completely different. Um, and that's important. I would have not have noticed that. I would not have even thought of it if I had just purely run a conversion split test. And so those are the kinds of things that you can reveal when you do heat maps. Now, I mentioned that Google Analytics has some heat mapping capability. This is it's called page analysis. I'll have to look up exactly where it is in the navigation of Google Analytics to tell you where this is. But basically, you can look at page analytics, and this particular screenshot is what they call browser size. It's this button on the top right, and they kind of paint this orange overlay around the edges to show you where 90% of the visitors can only see the top menu and then the free weekly training button and the video. And they barely see the little circles with the online learning, live events, and mastermind groups. And that's interesting to me because my assumption was that everybody would be able to see all three of those blocks below that. Now, in conflict with what is shown here, and this is what's interesting about using different tools, is that Clicktale actually shows the above the fold area is goes all the way just to the tops of the buttons for each one of those blocks. And what I do need to look at is, Google is saying that this is 90% of the people can see this section. What I didn't look at is what percentage of people they're saying can see those blocks. So it's interesting to look at. I mean, you can even break that down further and look at actual browsers and mobile devices and things like that. Mobile devices and mobile compatibility has become a huge issue, pretty much for anybody that doesn't have a mobile compatible site. Pretty much for any of my clients now, I would say, lawyers, doctors, dentists, authors, speakers, coaches, doesn't matter. About 30% of the visitors are mobile. And so, if you have 1,000 people visiting, that's 300 people that are mobile visitors. And that means that if you don't have a mobile compatible, mobile friendly site, which means big buttons and all that sort of thing, your bounce rate for those visitors is probably going to be over 80%, 80, 90%. That brings down your overall bounce rate for your site, which I don't know if you know this, but then that means Google assuming you have Google Analytics on your site, they evaluate that and then they say, oh, there's something wrong here. So mobile compatibility has become a big deal. Oh, I put this red line in here so you could see the above the fold section in case it wasn't obvious. So, so kind of in final review, what was learned here with some of this stuff is that you need to have a clear and obvious call to action. CTA is short for call to action. And you should have multiple CTAs as the user scrolls down. So I'm seeing this more and more. If you look at newer sites, new layouts, they're less complicated looking. There's less distractions on there for the eyeball, and there's more of it's kind of broken up into sections with a distinct call to action in each section. More and more of the designs we're doing for our clients are that way, and as we run heat maps, we see that that particular layout or model is working very well. Of course, convincing customers that they need to do it our way and that it would work better is one thing, and them having their design ideas is another. Uh, you do want to look at hover times over buttons and certain areas on the site and see if, are people sitting in one spot for a long time? What are they reading? What are they getting stuck on? Maybe you're not providing a clear message or enough, in some cases like e-commerce, trust factors. You're not reassuring them in terms of their safety, the security, and so on. And most important of all is really making sure that the important stuff is above the fold. And I'm sure you've seen this where you go to a dentist, a doctor, a lawyer website, and they have these huge pictures at the top of the screen, and it's of them, their face, or it's just these stock photography photos of somebody getting their mouth worked on or whatever, and there's really nothing there. It's one of my bigger pet peeves when that's going on, and then there's also no phone number. And worse yet is when you're on a mobile device, that phone number is not clickable, which is also a big common issue. You really should always have a phone number on the home page, assuming that you do business by phone, right? I don't tend to do business by phone other than with my private clients. But it's a big thing. So Dennis was asking a question here. He said, is there any problem with putting one or more of these tools on a site that already has analytics? There's really no problem with having multiple analytic tools on a site. So for example, the more customers, faster site. I have 3 or 4 or 5 different, they're all just JavaScripts. There is a fantastic tool that allows you to aggregate them all under one management window. So in other words, you only need one JavaScript, and it's called Segment.io. You can play with it for free. It works fantastic for aggregating stuff. Now, what I have found though is you will lose some things with that. And it's also for more advanced users. But generally speaking, Dennis, you can just put the Clicktale code on the website and the Google Analytics code on the website, and you won't have any issues. It's just going to be loading multiple JavaScripts, which, if you put too many of them, it can slow the site down a little bit. Any other questions about that? I wanted to take a moment and let you know what we're going to talk about next week. We're going to talk specifically about Facebook advertising. If you're not doing Facebook advertising, by the end of the Facebook series, which I'm guessing is going to run about 4 weeks, you will be doing Facebook advertising. Richard asks, have you concluded which is better product, Clicktale or Lucky Orange? Well, Clicktale is a more advanced product in my opinion. Lucky Orange is kind of they're not exactly the same. So Lucky Orange does heat mapping and click tracking and stuff like that, which also Clicktale does. But Lucky Orange also has those little forms, those pop-up forms and live chat features, and it's only $10 a month for the paid version. Whereas Clicktale, I think it starts at $99 a month. It goes up. However, Clicktale does, if you have a low traffic website, Clicktale does have a free version. And oftentimes I'll put Clicktale, the free version, on my client sites immediately after we deploy it. I make them set up an account. We put it on there for them. and leave it on there for the first 60 or 90 days so we can get good data, and then turn it off. Because one of the problems with Clicktale is that unless you're doing this a bunch, there's really no reason for you to have an account like that. Now, Lucky Orange is different in the sense that it provides additional value. It gives you the chat boxes and things like that. Yeah, and so Ron asks, are they better than Crazy Egg? Well, there again, Crazy Egg is it only heat mapping and click mapping, and it's also only $9 a month. It's really inexpensive. So, every single one of those tools though has a free trial period, and so it's going to depend upon what site you're applying it to and what your goals are and things like that. So it really honestly doesn't hurt you to try all of them. The one that was probably a little overwhelming in comparison is Clicktale. I would say if you wanted a real easy to use heat mapping tool, Crazy Egg is probably the route to go. It's a little more user friendly, in my opinion. Although having said that, it's been about a year since I've used Crazy Egg because I kind of default to Clicktale these days. So back to our Facebook advertising. So next week we're going to talk about targeting and campaign setup, and what I've discovered are some of the highest performing images. I mean, I know that you are aware of all these images on Facebook, and that's probably the hardest part about advertising on Facebook versus like a Google pay-per-click, right? Is that you on Google PPC stuff, you just pick a keyword and you bid on that keyword. Well, on Facebook, selecting an image and editing it and thinking through what graphics you're going to use on your Facebook ad is key and critical to your success. We're going to talk about integrating retargeting with your Facebook advertising. If you're not already doing it for yourself or for your customers, you absolutely 100% should put retargeting code on every website you own that you're serious about. And here's why: because it doesn't cost you anything to put the code on there and then advertise to people later. If you go to the More Customers Faster YouTube channel, I actually have a little webinar I did on there for my last workshop attendees, and explained how to integrate that with lead pages. You also should be tracking lead conversions when you're advertising, right? You want to know how much does it cost me to get a lead when I run a Facebook ad, because you don't want to just run, spend $1,000 on advertising and not know which campaign or which image is the one that's giving you the lowest cost conversions, right? So we'll break down all that. I'll even get later on, I'll get into some advanced Facebook advertising tools that we use for managing our clients' Facebook ads. So again, I just wanted to give you information about these workshops that we have coming up. So the one in Phoenix, Arizona on March 17th is less, I think it's 10 days away or something. So it's pretty close. Also going to do one on April 17th here in San Diego, California, which is where I spend most of my time. And if you'd like to check out, what past attendees have had to say and what's covered in the workshop, you can go to morecustomersfaster.com/March workshop. I'll tell you that the goal of the workshop, the reason I put the workshop together is because people were asking me to help them set up funnels and generate leads and stuff like that, but they didn't have the budget necessary to hire me to do that, right? So in the workshop, they for $300, people can come in, get a full day of training, and then walk out. We walk them through step by step, setting everything up. They walk out with a Facebook ad that's running, landing pages, analytics setup, and leads that are being generated by the end of the day. In fact, we guarantee that you'll have leads when you leave, or if you don't, we give all attendees their money back. So if you're interested in something like that, I would invite you to come and attend. These will not be the last ones. So if you can't make these, that's fine. We'll have more in the future. Ron says $300 is the cost. Yes, it's $297. It's on the page there. And as I said before, it's a 100% money back guarantee. The reason I do that is because I don't want people to show up and if they don't get leads out of the process, then they really shouldn't pay, right? Because the purpose of the workshop is to get results. So again, if you're interested in that, there's all the details and the guarantees and testimonials from the past attendees and stuff at the URL on the screen. I look forward to seeing you next week. If you've Since you're on this webinar, that tells me that you've signed up for my new webinar forum. The good news for you is that I've set this up as a series, so you'll automatically be reminded by GoToWebinar that this is happening. But in the meantime, you will probably still get emails from me inviting you to join and sign up. So I apologize if you get those in a redundant fashion because I'm um, migrating and so on. Ron says, sure, I'll fly out. You buy the dinner. Well, I don't know where you are, Ron. Aren't you in San Diego? If you're in San Diego, you could just wait till next month. Um, Anyway, I think that's it for today. Oh, you're in the UK. Right. I think it says Wall or Walter. I can't tell. Joined late. Will there be a replay? Yes, I will put this. This has been recorded, and it will be posted in the archive. So, as always, it will be posted in the archive. So again, thanks for coming in the middle of the day. I appreciate you hanging out with me for 30 minutes. Hopefully every week you get some little nugget out of this. And if you can't make it, of course, there'll always be the members training archive. Again, I'd like to encourage you to subscribe to the YouTube channel and go to the facebook.com/more customers faster and like the page and all that stuff. I appreciate your support. Um, and I hope to see you guys again soon. Yeah, it is short and sweet, Ron. So we'll do another nice short training on Facebook next week. Um, Thanks, Richard. Thank you for saying that. Talk to you guys next Thursday. That is all for today.